For the dyeing, I'm going to be using what's it called? I don't know how you pronounce it. Fibings, which is quite a common leather dye, which comes with a little cotton dauber. And it's all important with leather dyes to always sort of put rubber gloves on, latex gloves, because it dyes leather, so it'll definitely dye your skin. I mean, I've got it on my fingers before, and it takes days and days to wear off. It looks like you've got giant nicotine stains all over your hands. But anyway, back to the project. What I'm going to do is also, I forgot to mention also that I was going to dye the inside of the belt loop, because obviously once that's on, you won't be able to get inside that. Give this a quick shake. Now, I always dye my leather quite dark. Some people prefer to use suede dye because it gives us a lighter finish without saturating the leather too much. But I prefer my leather fairly dark anyway, so almost forgot. Damp it first. Apply your leather dye when it's damp. Right. Start again. Well, carry on. This is just a cloth I'm getting the excess off of, by the way, if you're wondering what that is. What I also tend to do with the cloth is, once I've applied the leather dye, is give it a little rub just to even out the coat. So it helps to see where there's any light spots or dark spots where the leather's not absorbing the dye quite as easily. Give that another coat later on. Okay, I'll let that dry off for a bit and get back to you when it comes to assembling the pieces. And now it's time to mark where the stitching is going to go on the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a rectangular shape of stitching on the inside of this piece. I'll just that way, on the inside of the belt loop that's going to attach to the main pouch. Do a rectangle of stitching and put a rivet in the middle just for extra sort of security. And to mark the stitching, as usual, damp the leather down a little bit, just makes the surface a little bit softer. And what I've done is I've marked right in the centre of it where the centre line is, and using an old blunt, fairly wide screwdriver, you can just press that in to the leather. So you don't really need to hammer it. You can hammer it if you want. Mark that either side so that they're parallel to the bottom. Then mark up. And across again. And hopefully you can zoom in. Sorry, the light's not perfect here. Can't really see that very well. Oh, there you go. You can see the rectangular marks where the stitching is going to go. And to mark the holes for the stitching, I'll be using this, which is a carpenter's scratch. Zoom out so you can see the whole thing. Carpenter's scratch, which is like a bradawl, but well, does exactly the same job as a bradawl, I suppose, because it's just a spike, really. And start in the middle. You can just about make out where the holes are there. And what we've got to do is line that up with the pouch itself and transfer those holes through. And if you remember, we marked where this was going to go onto the pouch with a pencil line before. So line that up. Keeping it all together. And there's the holes on that side. Just finish those off. And now it's a good idea to do the same, mark the stitching on the inside. This gives them a little bit of a recess, so when you're sliding the multi-tool in and out, it reduces the amount it catches on the threads. And reduces the risk of breaking the threads. But as I say, it's going to have a rivet in the middle anyway, so the hole where the rivet's going to go. And for the stitching, we use linen thread. You can use artificial sinew if you've got it, for a bit more of a traditional look, but I like to stick to natural materials, and natural sinew's not the easiest thing to come by. An appropriate needle, it should be in here somewhere. There we go. Now obviously this is only a handful of threads, so we're not going to need a huge amount. That'll be plenty there. Now what I'll be doing is I'll be starting on the outside so that the knot finishes where the belt loop is, because the belt that you're going to be wearing it on is not going to be anywhere near as abrasive as the sharp edges of a multi-tool sliding in and out of it, so there's less chance of it catching and damaging. So if we start on the outside, right, I shall carry on with that. As you see, I've gotten started, and what you want to do is stitch through, and then when you get to the beginning again, go back the other way so that it stitches over the gaps where there wasn't a stitch. So stitch, miss, then it'll be miss, stitch, all the way around again. Okay, now I'll get back to the bit that we were going to put through. Straight through the middle. It may need a little bit of clearance again, just to make sure it'll fit it. There we go. Now, when I set my rivets, what I do, if I can find it, is because when you hammer them over, the back of the rivet will dig into soft materials like wood, so I get an old piece of 4mm steel and lay that on the back. Now this is the cap that goes on top of the rivet, if I don't drop it, like that. So the back of the rivet is on the inside, the flat side of the rivet, and the cap goes on the top. Zoom out so the focus isn't great. And all you need to do then is get a small pin hammer, without dropping everything else in the workshop, and drive it on. And that's as easy as that. So the hammering sets the back of the rivet flush with the leather, and on the front is slightly proud, and that'll be covered up by the belt loop anyway, so you won't really see it. Alright, now what we've got to do is do the same with the bottom part of the belt loop. And now that the bottom part is stitched on, and it's not wanting to focus too well on that. Right, now the bottom of the belt loop stitched on, we've got to think about how this is going to fasten, and for this I'm using a piece of the leather to make a strap on probably on the top part, so it comes down like so from the top, and a small buckle that is just riveted onto the case. So what we've got to do is sew the strap on to there, and then rivet the buckle on before we attach these two together, because obviously when that's on there you won't be able to hold the back and hammer the rivet down, so which would make life quite awkward. Go that way, make sure it's up the right way. And I mean, you could sew the strap onto this after you've sewn it together, because the flap's loose, but you won't know exactly where to put your the buckle, I suppose, in relationship with it then. So I shall get on with that and get back to you with the results. Right, now I've got the strap on the outside part, where the lid's going to be. I just rivet it on with one rivet, so there's a little bit of, if I need to I can swivel it slightly, and attach the buckle to the main part. As you notice, I also made the cutout so that you can get the multi-tool in and out, and I've just started marking the stitch lines on this side of the leather using the screwdriver again. Just mark the hole at the top with the brad awl, and then start stitching down and following this line. And again, this line was made using the dividers, just setting a certain distance and following the edge down, pressing, so it gives you a little groove to follow. Okay, I'll carry on with marking these stitch marks, and I'll get back to you again. Okay, now the stitch lines are all marked, as you can probably see, and the holes have been started with the brad awl on the outside. What I've got to do is transfer the holes through onto the back piece again, as we did with the belt loop. And one of the easiest ways to do this, because trying to keep them all in line, is mark through one of the holes with the brad awl, and then tack it in place with a panel pin onto a piece of wood. Line up the edge, mark through the next hole, and do the same again. Like so, and that will keep these all in line and stop them moving around, so you get the straight line come through on the back edge as well. So So start making the rest of the holes, marking those through, and there we go. All of the holes have been transferred through to the back, and I've got the 4 pins in the corners just to hold it all in line when I start stitching it. So I'll stitch that up and probably stain it, because I've shown you the staining part already on another part. So stitch it up, stain it, and I'll show you the end result. And now what we need to do is wax proof it. For this I just use some paraffin wax, which is designed for like wax jackets and things like that, but it works really well on leather and gives it a nice soft waterproof outer. And to do that, what we need to do is get some on a cloth like so, and let's get some of the dust off of this first, and just rub it all onto the leather work. So once that's on, and we've got a thin layer of it all the way over the pouch. Sorry, there we go. Then we use the heat gun like this on a low heat setting, and melt the wax, and it soaks in to the leather, giving it a deep, long-lasting finish. So I shall get on with that and show you it after it's been waxed. And there we go. That's the finished pouch, all waxed up now. So it's waterproof. There's a slightly waxy finish still to it. As I say, you can now polish that up with normal boot polish. Obviously brown with brown leather and black with black leather. Yeah, I mean, it's basically done. So you don't have to polish it. If you don't like shiny leather, then don't polish it. But I normally like to, just to give it that new sort of look, or semi-new look to it, restored look, whatever. Okay, thanks for watching.